Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethos Online. Again, this is a place where we can be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. So, again, wherever you're joining us, we want to welcome you into this way of creating space where we essentially take ancient literature and we view it from a responsible perspective. Again, we look at the historical context and then we apply it for today. What does it mean? How do we use it? How does it function right here, right now? And so we do this with the Bible, and oftentimes we'll look at it from various perspectives, and the whole thing comes alive. And so we do this verse by verse study because we know there is so much beauty, so much depth there. And so joining us today, please look down real quick at the screen below. You're going to find little spots where you can actually donate monthly. You can click the little link and you can hit the bell. You'll find out every time a new video comes online. Please continue walking and journeying with us. And so we've been moving through this series, Genesis. Again, this series has been so much fun because we've already done quite a few different videos over this, and we're only in chapter 2, right? Because chapter 2, again, it's packed with so much beauty, so much meaning. It really does need to be taken verse by verse to really get the full effect of the story, of the metaphors, of the deeper meanings behind the words, everything. And so let me remind you again what the book of Genesis, how it was formed, who the audience was, all of that, because that's really important when we understand this book. So again, these individuals, these Israelites, they are attacked by this Babylonian empire. Their temple is destroyed. They're marched hundreds of miles on foot. They get into a new country, a new empire, a new place, and they're surrounded by other people who have also lost their homes. And so they're stuck there in Babylon, and they're beginning to notice all of the other tribes have assimilated. They've taken Babylonian gods. They've taken the cultures. They've taken the values. Israel says we don't want to do that. We want to stay true to our gods, our God. We want to stay true to our beliefs and our values. We want to hold true to Judaism. And so what Israel does here is a really crucial moment for Israel. They take all the wisdom writings, the metaphors, everything, and they compile it all together. And they create what we have today as the Torah. And so the Torah is a written response to the fears of assimilation. It's all of those pieces: Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. This is Torah. This is it. Those first 5 books. And so again, Torah is poetry. It's song, it's mythology, it's prophetic musings, it's warnings to their people. If we do this again, this is going to happen. If we fall into this cycle again, be very careful what we do here with the freedom we have. And so these are all beautiful, beautiful wisdom writings for Israel so that they don't assimilate. And so one of the key phrases we use over and over again in this series is Torah is a complete narrative of Israel miniaturized through its tellings. And so every time we come upon a new story, whether it's Jacob, Abraham, Moses, whatever stories we pick up, Jonah, right? These different stories, they are all told for one purpose. And again, it is to miniaturize Israel, to make them understand this is us. This is us through the character of Jonah. This is us through the character of Noah. All of the different characters, they're Israel miniaturized. They see themselves in every story told. And so Genesis 1, we went through that, and that was a lot of fun. We understood that their God, he steps into the chaos, does not create chaos like Babylon's God, but this God steps into the chaos and then begins clearing the table off, right? We talked about busboy God, clears the table off, and then after the table's cleared, then begins to put things in place, create order. And so again, this is the Genesis 1 poem. Now, when we get into Genesis 2, it's different because it's not told as a poem. It's told as a story. So again, this story, you would have people gathering around the campfire. They'd be telling this story, and it's more centered not on Israel's God this time, but now it's centered on Adam and Eve, which is really, again, Israel miniaturized. And so anyone trying to take this piece and say, oh, it's historically true, right? It's history. This is exactly how everything happened. No, you're missing the point. Because again, if you look at Genesis 1, you compare it to Genesis 2, there are many differences there. And again, that doesn't mean that it's not true, but it means it may not be as literal as you hoped, right? But it's still true, essentially meaning the story, the metaphor is true. We understand it to be true over and over again. That's the real beauty of Genesis. And so today we're going to look at Genesis 2, 18 through 25. And so let me read it to you first. And the Lord God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I shall make him a helpmate opposite him." And the Lord God formed the earth, every beast of the field, and every fowl of the heavens, and he brought it to man to see what he would call it. And whatever the man called each living thing, that was its name. And the man named all the cattle and the fowl in the heavens and all the beasts of the field. But for man, he did not have a helpmate opposite him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon man, and he slept. And he took one of his sides, and he closed the flesh in its place. And the Lord God built the side that he had taken from man into woman, and he brought her to man. And man said, "This time it is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. This one shall be called Isha, woman, because this one was taken from Ish, man. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother, and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Now they were both naked, the man and his wife, but they were not ashamed." There's a lot there. And so we're going to move through this and just dissect some of the most beautiful pieces to this. We could actually spend probably 3 or 4 days doing this. But I'm just going to take you through some of the major elements that I have seen and also Judaism seems to kind of center on. So number one, notice this. He creates a helpmate opposite him. Now, some might say, and some have, right, in the past, some have said women are lower than men, right? They're a helpmate because man has a job and woman can come along and sweep up after him, right? The helpmate. This idea, all throughout until the 80s, even 90s, we've seen this over and over again. It's a misuse of the scriptures. It's not the point. The point was never to say man is up here, woman's down here, and she just helps the man, No, that misses, it's an absolute miss of the point. Yeah, it completely misses the beauty of it here. Here's what this means, helpmate. Think about it this way. Helpmate, two individuals working together that complement one another. So again, think of peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, both of them together, they create a fabulous, fabulous sandwich. Yeah, one's not better than the other. They complement one another for yummy goodness for all children to have during lunchtime. Yeah, think about this, mac and cheese. Again, complementing one another. That's the idea, right? Scottie Pippen and Jordan. We have these individuals all throughout culture where we know this person complements this person. They work together. There's not one higher than the other sweeping along. No. The idea here is that they work together. And notice this, Ish and Ah-ish. Ish, Ah-ish. Ish, Ish-ah, right? So watch this. These are what the words mean. Ish is actually fire. The word here, it means like passion, energy. It's that adrenaline, right? You see something you don't like and you just, right? It causes emotion, passion. That's the idea. Now, Ish-ah is this. It's the nurture. It's the one that takes that energy and moves it and brings life with it. So think about this. You can't have the nurture without the passion. You can't have the passion without the nurture. The two must work together. If they don't, things get out of whack. The two have to work together to make the sandwich, right? To make the amazing NBA team. The two complement one another. And that's the beauty of this story here. Man and woman were made to complement one another. That's the deeper telling here. And so in a tribe of people, we learn, again, not just men and women, but we learn that everyone has their place. They're the priests, they're the workers, they're the scribes, the tent makers. Everyone has a place, and no one is higher than the other. Everyone works for the betterment of the world, of the community. That was the idea. We all complement one another. You have Ish and Isha. You have fire and nurture. And together, they work together. They complement one another. Let me keep going. And the Lord God formed from the earth every beast of the field, every fowl of the heavens, and he brought it to man to see what he would call it. Now, is this God basically saying, "Oh man, I'm kind of out of creativity," right? I don't know what to call these. That thing with I don't know, anteater. Good idea. No. Again, this is a metaphor. This is a story. This is something told around campfires. First off, remember that, and then there's a deeper telling about Israel, right? So Adam is called to bring order and give names to every living thing. One writer says this about this moment. One Jewish writer says this: "For the ancients, giving a name was as important as choosing their destiny in the world. One's name was their identity and role in the world." And so whenever you hear a name mentioned in the Hebrew associated with a person or a tribe, there's always something deeper going on there. It's actually telling you something deep about this individual's life, about their journey, and about the theme that you will find in their story. Yeah, there's a lot in a name. And so Adam, he's naming, he's giving things identity and purpose. Yeah. Now think about us, our role in the world. If we are Israel miniaturized, right? If we find ourselves in the story as Adam, we too should, everything we should do, we should be finding ways to give meaning and identity to everything around us. Every decision we make, right? Every conversation we have should bring life. It should bring purpose. It should bring value. And so again, Adam is doing what God did in Genesis 1. He is ordering the world. He's bringing order and life, which is what Israel was called to do. Yeah. So good. All right, here it goes. He did not find a helpmate opposite him. I want you to think about this. In this creation of bringing order and life, right? In all this creation of bringing order and life, everything has a purpose. Everything has a connection, right? But if man is alone, where does he fit in this cycle of life, right? The circle of life. Where does he fit? Where does man fit in this circle, in this cycle? If there is no companion, right? If there is no one to walk life with. It's just that it's a very lonesome journey. And so there is a helpmate. So let me read the rest of this because I think it gets even more interesting. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon man, and he slept. Again, this is ancient metaphorical story. Did this literally happen? He makes him fall asleep, gives him some anesthetic? Probably not, right? Yeah. There's something deeper going on. He took one of his sides. Now, oftentimes people will, they'll translate this ribs, but no, it actually means half. The word here means he took half of Adam. So again, literalize that. It gets a little weird, right? Like taking half of Adam. No. But the deeper idea here is he takes half of Adam, which is again, Adam is made up of half dirt, half breath. When you mix the two, this is the divine breath and dirt all mixed together. And so he takes a piece of that, this God, and mixes it with Eve. It's beautiful, right? So this one shall be called Isha Woman because this was taken from man. So again, many people will take this. And again, they will assume, see, man came first. He was the more important one. So because man came first, he's the head of the household. He is the hunter-gatherer. He is the most important. When he makes a decision, it must be followed, right? Corporate America must be masculine. Everything, I've heard it over and over again. We see often how this is misused because Adam was the man. He was the more important one. Now woman comes behind, right? She should be barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen, right? Subservient. Man is up here, woman down here. The issue here is that is just not the point. Not the point at all. Again, God says, I'm taking half and half, I'm bringing it together. When you take two halves and you bring them together, it causes completion. And the two actually are equal. and they have a purpose. The two walk together, bringing order and life to the world. And when one chooses to not walk with the other, we get lots of fires, right? We get lots of chaos. If there's no passion or energy in our nurturing and our bringing order to life, and again, think bigger than just this is a masculine and feminine. Think even bigger. When we don't nurture things without passion, it doesn't grow, right? We've got to have both. We complement one another in the journey, and that's the deeper truth of this section of this poem, or this story, I should say. So it keeps going, and then it brings up, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife. Ever since I was little, what does cleave mean, Mom? What does cleave mean? Cleave is such a weird word. This is a King James kind of word. Cleave, again, a deep word in the Hebrew. Cleave means to be united. So look at this verse one more time. And cleave to his wife. That's beautiful. Like, think about these partnerships where people come together, they're united. They cleave to one another. They say, we are united now. We're united in our journey together. We're united in the decisions we make. Everything we do now, we walk hand in hand together. It's a united front. So whether it's parenting, it's finances, it's whatever it is, we learn to walk together. And this is the idea of this union, right? And again, thinking of the deeper union, Israel and their God, this is a beautiful one. We walk hand in hand. We are united with our God. We walk with God. And this is how it ends. Notice this. Now they were both naked, the man and the wife, but they were not ashamed. They were not ashamed. So before eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, Adam and Eve, they walked with God everywhere. And again, the idea here is God, wisdom, life, right? Everywhere they went, they had this divine wisdom guiding them. And because of that divine wisdom guiding them, their choices were good, right? Every time they experienced new fruit, new understanding, new knowledge, they had God's wisdom to help them make the decisions. And so again, for Israel, understand the beauty of this, because we're wrapping up here. For Israel, this reminder that when we love each other like a married couple does, when they're united and walk together, this is the same thing that the divine is calling us to do with him, her, it, however you want to describe the divine. When we walk together with the divine, bringing order in life, it is just like this thing we know is marriage and partnership with one another. It should all look the same. It should act the same. Everything we do brings order and life all around us. So I thought it'd be interesting today to take it home. For many of us who have been married or in a relationship, I thought this would be interesting because I read a couple articles and a couple books on this, and some of the advice I got was really good. How do we learn to walk with one another, and what simple actions can I give you to consider today? So I thought about it, and here's a couple that come from some of my favorite writers. Number one is this. When you're walking with one another, obviously problems are going to arise. Right? You're not going to agree on everything. But one thing many authors bring up is this. We have to take time to listen and appreciate the other view. Because often I think we get so caught up in our own view, what we're seeing, and we get caught up in the idea that I'm right, my perspective is the only important one, and we forget that there's a person right next to us who's seen from maybe a different perspective. And sometimes when you bring the two perspectives together, it brings life. It gives perspective. And because of that, you have two beautiful perspectives coming together, and now the road is so much fuller. So take time to listen and learn to appreciate the other perspective. She noticed something. She brought it up. Learn to appreciate the fact that she did. Yeah? Good. Number two, remember that you are a half of the whole. Learn to lean on the other half for new insights. And it kind of goes with number one, but it's even deeper. When you're walking with that person, that partner, learn often, whenever you're feeling frustrated, whenever you come into a bump in the road, seek the other's help. Ask them what kind of advice or ideas they see. It's one thing to be walking together and bump heads and say, well, what'd you see? But then to be walking together, seeking advice from one another, asking in conversations, what do you see? How do you perceive this? Learning to have that person as your helpmate is so important because there's trust there. It's almost like the fall, right? The trust fall. You get to a place where you can close your eyes knowing that when you fall back, that person's going to catch you. You've learned to trust them, trust that they have another perspective to share, and it's going to be good. Number 3, take time to walk together when problems come rather than allow it to divide you. Whenever a problem happens, many of the writers I've read lately, they say, allow a problem to actually be one more instance, one more bump that it can actually bring you together. And so when you have struggles, consider it a blessing. Consider it one more thing that is going to bring the two of you together. And if you look at problems that way, consider how deep that relationship will be in 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. This person becomes literally the other half of you. Yeah, it's so good. And lastly, remove argument from your vocabulary. Replace it with conversation. Yeah? Isn't that good? Stop talking about these disagreements as arguments. Consider them conversations, which might even cause you to lower the voice, lower the heartbeat, lower the anger, the frustration. It might cause there to be a conversation rather than an argument. Folks, I really enjoyed this one. This kind of gets into marriage, women's perspectives, patriarchy versus obvious direction that God intended the whole thing to be. It opens up so much. So I hope you enjoyed this. And again, as always, please consider giving to ethos-church.org/donate. If you'd like to join us monthly, we do these meetings where we meet together twice a month. And we actually have live discussions. I don't speak at you. I just talk and kind of steer conversation. And so if you want to join us for Ethos Living Rooms, please shoot me an email, TonyWerfel, WUERFEL, @gmail.com, and I would love to send you that Zoom link. And subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, and you'll know every time we have a new video. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We talked about Ish and Isha. We talked about relationships. We did it all today. And it was so much fun. And so I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great week. And we'll see you next week as we continue studying the book of Genesis.